The San Jose Sharks announced their leadership team, and oops, all alternates.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, here to take out the reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do, just follow along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be discussing all alternates as the Sharks, they named their leadership group, but with no captain. Doing kind of a bit of a vibes check-in with how I feel about the team and, my sense of what fans feel. And then I'm going to make some really dumb, bold predictions for the season as we are here, guys. It is game day. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 of bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So, of course, right, we so much wasted ink and minutes on podcasts and right all summer. Who's going to be the next captain of the San Jose Sharks? Is it going to be Tyler Toffoli? Is it going to be Macklin Celebrini? Is it going to be Barclay Goodrow by some people? And we get to the moment and the Sharks decide we're not going to have a captain this year. So let's, of course, start by congratulating those who are wearing letters. So Tyler Toffoli, alternate captain, he will wear the A in every game. So he is your Queen Bee captain, alternate captain. Barclay Goodrow and Macklin Celebrini will serve as alternate captains for home games. And then Mario Ferraro and Alex Wenberg will both serve as alternate captains for away games. So we knew, right, Toffoli wore an A last year. Barclay Goodrow wore an A last year. Mario Ferraro wore an A last year. Wenberg wore one at the end of the season after they traded away Granlund. So really the only new name here is Macklin Celebrini. So all the, the hope, right, that we would start to kind of see the new generation of guys kind of getting more of a say. And yes, we have Celebrini. We're going to talk a bunch about Celebrini here in 2 seconds. But the hope that you would see guys like William Eklund, potentially wearing an A to, again, usher in this new group of players and kind of start to hand things off from the past. All that hope just poof, as we are again. It's basically just running back the same group, right? Except for you swap out Granlund for Celebrini this year. So, and I get it. Like, I get the frustration of people wanting a captain to be named, but like the Sharks don't want to take this decision lightly. So, Celebrini, who I think it's fair to say the next time the Sharks name a captain, it's going to be Macklin Celebrini, right? They would rather just keep the role vacant until they feel they're ready to give it to Celebrini. So this time next year, when Macklin Celebrini, hopefully coming off a brand new extension, to lock him up for 8 years at the end of his ELC, coming off a hopeful, massive season, ready to continue to kind of take bigger steps in the organization. You can slap the letter C on the front of his jersey, this time next year and sometime in training camp and make him the next captain of the San Jose Sharks. So, but I do think it is, a good step for Celebrini to get some of these responsibilities, right? And I know people are going to say he's too young, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I don't know how, like, Celebrini's just a different dude, man. Like, he's not a normal 19-year-old kid, right? It's funny he said, like, I haven't worn a letter since Pee Wee, and someone did find a letter with him wearing a letter with Team Canada, which is a little funny, but um, like, this guy's still been a leader and has been well respected in every room he steps in, right? And again, I talked about it this summer of him spending all this time with Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon. And again, I know McKinnon's not the captain of the Colorado Avalanche, but he was kind of the acting captain over the past couple seasons with Landeskog being out. But like Sidney Crosby, who's considered one of the best captains, especially of this era, right? And one of the best captains ever, spending time and, kind of, especially at Worlds and like this off season practicing with him and having some of that influence kind of rub off on Celebrini and Crosby himself, right? Kind of noticing and what Celebrini's doing and speaking very highly of Celebrini and already kind of making the push to have Celebrini on the Team Canada Olympics roster in February. Like, Celebrini, he's going to be the next captain. And my assumption is the Sharks didn't want to put Tyler Toffoli in the awkward situation of, here, be the captain, but like, this isn't a permanent thing because Celebrini is going to be the captain at some point and be our long-term captain, right? So I get it from that point of just like, you don't want to put Celebrini in that awkward position. And you've seen plenty of, ceremonious handoffs. I mean, we saw right this year of Tavares handing off to Matthews this offseason, and we've seen the Sharks deal with it with Thornton and Marleau and Pavelski, all these guys wearing the C at some point, even though, right, there's the previous captain is still on the team. Like, guys will work through it and stuff like that. But I think the Sharks were trying to not put Tyler Toffoli into that a little bit awkward situation, right? And especially when we all know it's going to be Macklin Celebrini at some point. And there's no reason for the Sharks to rush into it and just make him the captain. And whenever they feel like he's ready to be the captain, whether it's, sometime this year, sometime next offseason or whenever, they'll do it then. But like I said, I think though my kind of back to my earlier point though is I think it's a little frustrating where you have just a lot of the same guys, and it would have been nice to see some of these younger players like William Eklund, for example, kind of take on more of that leadership role, right? And this team does feel, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more here in the middle section here of just this weird spot of you have so many veterans who are here right now, but you don't know how long they're going to be here, with the exception of Tyler Toffoli, who's going to be here for the next several years. And you have these young guys who are ready or hoping to make a bigger impact sooner rather than later. And this would have been, I think, a nice opportunity for the Sharks to start to see some of these younger guys take a bigger step in the leadership department and be bigger voices in the organization, right? Because, yes, Barclay Goodrow, right, you claimed him for his leadership and what he does in the room and everything like that, but the dude looks miserable being here. Mario Farr, well deserving of wearing a letter A. Like he every time he steps on the ice, right, he gives 100%. Everyone talks about how big he is around the room, et cetera, et cetera. But and Wenberg is like an absolute professional. But again, like out of those three guys, would you be surprised if two of the three are gone by the trade deadline? Because I wouldn't be surprised. So I just wish the Sharks were thinking a little bit more long term about it compared to just trying to give to some of the guys right now. So anyway, what do I know? We're going to talk about kind of the vibes and kind of what I'm feeling about this team and kind of what some of the feedback I've seen from you guys as we get ready to start the season here. And then I'm going to make some really dumb, bold predictions that are 100% going to go wrong. And I'll get one right. And I will never, ever, ever let you guys forget the one that I got right. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. You'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Great thing about FanDuel is it gives you so many different ways to play. You can build parlays. So if you think a series of things are going to happen, you could do player props. Darren Waller touchdowns feel pretty safe right now. And you can even join into games as they are going. Maybe you like comebacks, all that fun stuff. They got you covered there. So it makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and to get started. All right, before we continue, of course, want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't yet, perfect time to subscribe. We have game on Thursday night against the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll have a preview episode, about 10 minutes preview episode up on our YouTube channel at Locked On Sharks. That'll go up early afternoon so you can get ready for the game. Plus, we'll have reactions to all the games, all that fun stuff. Some fun interviews lined up coming up here soon as well. So plenty of great stuff here at Locked On Sharks, where we cover your team every day. So the vibes behind this team right now, right? And as weird as it sounds, it's something you do have to kind of think about, right? Because you look back at that 23-24 team as they slogged to being the worst team in the NHL, and got Macklin Celebrini for it, right? Just like horrible vibes, right? Just like this team it was bad, and there wasn't really much to kind of gain from it. Like there wasn't really much to hang your hat on that season, right? Fast forward to last year. Again, a very bad team, but the vibes were just a lot better, especially with Macklin Celebrini doing cool Macklin Celebrini things, Will Smith coming along the second half of the season, Tyler Toffoli kind of adding some energy, as well as the fun uncle. And, again, you saw a little bit of improvement from the team, but like overall, I thought the team was able to kind of keep the good vibes going despite all the losses. So this year, like heading into camp or heading into the regular season here, it's a little weird where like it kind of feels like I was talking about before, where you have all these young players, right? Especially Dickinson and Misa, and guys like Ethan Cardwell and Luca Cagnoni, where they're all just kind of waiting for their chance and their opportunity, especially after Grier went out to get so many veterans, right? And we heard Grier say, like, we're not going to block jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And it does feel like for a lot of these guys, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when they take these jobs. So right now it does feel really frustrating where you're not getting, potentially not seeing Misa and Dickinson play the home opener, and they're going to get in the lineup at some point. A guy like Ethan Cardwell who battled and played really well in the preseason, and has been a good soldier and played really well with the Barracuda, and looks like he's ready to kind of jump into that next role. Guys like that being kind of held back by your Ty Dellandres, your Barclay Goodrows, et cetera, and the Sharks just kind of being stuck in their ways with some of those. So, like, I totally get that, right? And that's where I'm trying to kind of take a bigger view of this, where yes, it's super frustrating right now, right? Of not seeing these young guys playing. And we talked about it yesterday, but we wanted to kind of come back to it. It's super frustrating right now. But like these guys are going to play at bigger points. And I think with Grier, right, where he's in this little bit, Grier and Warsofsky are kind of in this little bit tough situation of they don't want to hand jobs away, right? And they want to make the kids earn it. But at some point, like, you have to give the kids an opportunity to earn it. And that's, again, you kind of come back to the Barclay Goodrows and Tyler Landrys of the world, who, yes, Tyler Landry I thought had a really good preseason. Barclay Goodrow had an okay preseason, and he scored a goal in that one game, and against Utah. But we have, like, it's the balance of, well, is this a new year, especially for a guy like Tyler Landry, or maybe a refocus? But then you look at, just how both these guys played last season, and it was, to be fair, pretty poor, right? There's a reason why, analytically, both these players are one of the worst players in the NHL last year. So I get that from a fan's perspective of, like, when are we going to get to the fireworks factory, right? When are we going to see these guys of your Cardwells and your Canyonis and your Misas and your Dickinsons and whoever else, like Musty, Chernyshov, et cetera, right? But I do think from Grier, Warsofsky, right, is he wants to make sure that the hope is when you call these guys up, especially guys like Canyoni and Cardwell, who have spent time in the AHL, that when you call them up, you're calling them up for good, right? Like Colin Graff last year. Like, Colin Graff could have easily started the season in the NHL, or in the NHL last year. They sent him back, let him play in the AHL, and Colin Graff is a better player for it, right? Again, like Cardwell and Canyoni, both those guys could be in the NHL right now. But we've seen Grier, want to over-ripen some of these prospects, that he has the opportunity to over-ripen some of these prospects. So that way, when they get to the NHL, you see less of the struggles, and you see less of some of the issues, and maybe they don't get their confidence crushed or stuff like that, right? Because they've kind of been through it a little bit. And again, like, if it was me, right, like, I'm putting Cardwell in the lineup over some of the guys, like, between Goodrow or Reeves or like Delandry. Like, I would rather see Cardwell, because if he's gonna make mistakes, like, I'd rather see rookie mistakes, and as he continues to get better and hopefully cleans those issues up, compared to just some of the mistakes we see from some of those guys. But so it does feel like some of the vibes coming off of last year, right? And especially as the season ended, right? And how many fans were just like, I cannot wait for the new season, right? I cannot wait for October. I can't wait to see these guys. I can't wait for us to start taking this next step. And it feels like the next step is just a little delayed right now, as we're kind of working through some of these veterans until, Cardwell and Misa and Dickinson and Canyoni, until they just kind of push through, and they make it undeniable that they are better options than some of the guys on the roster. And whether that's through trades or just play or whatever it is, like, it does feel, like I said, it does feel like there's just a little bit of a dampening on the vibes right now. But, watch Macklin Celebrini do cool things, and, Will Smith and Eklund and some of these guys do cool things. And, like, we could be, if the Sharks get out to a decent start, we could be talking about, like, man, like, it's great to see some of these guys kind of coming alive and starting to do what we're expecting, and all that stuff. So, I get it. Believe me. I want to watch the young guys do their thing here soon. So, but we'll get there. We will get to the fireworks factory, I promise. So, I'm going to make some really dumb, bold predictions here in a second, including a player who I think gets re-signed. So, we'll make dumb predictions that are 100% going to be wrong, except for one. One of them will come right. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. All right, before we finish up, of course want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL Game Night. They cover every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. So, bold predictions, right? And Max and I had some fun this week and kind of looking at overs and unders and stuff like that. And for this, I wanted more of a team perspective, right? Of what some predictions I think the Sharks will do as a team, right? And not so much of I think Macklin Celebrini is going to score, because we kind of did that with Max earlier this week. So some of them are we kind of touched on, but I wanted to dive into them a little bit more here. So my first bold prediction for this year: the Sharks do not three-peat as the worst team in the NHL. That is as bold as it sounds. The Sharks are not the worst team in the NHL this year, and I think they're going to be like the fifth worst team. So, and even to go on top of it, I don't think they finished last in the Pacific. I think another team finishes. And the two teams I've talked about all summer, between the Kraken and the Flames, are the two teams I'm circling as teams that I think the Sharks have a chance to jump. Because I do think this team, I think there's going to be some rough spots to start the season, especially with so many veterans and so many new pieces kind of coming together. So I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of see similar to what we saw last year, of just a slow start, but then things start to kind of pick up in November. And that's but this year, I don't think we have the fall off that we saw, especially after Blackwood got traded. I think you see this team continue to kind of gain steam throughout the year and just be kind of like the team that we saw from November, like that kind of November, early December before Blackwood got traded. And I think that's the team we're going to see for majority of the season. So, and if that team it shows up most nights, I think that team can win a fair amount of games. Not a lot, but they can win their fair share of games. So my first bold prediction is I think the San Jose Sharks are not the worst team in the NHL. I think they're going to be the fifth worst team in the NHL, which we're going from 52 points to that is a big jump, right? I do think once teams are kind of out of it, I think there will be a lot of aggressive tanking for Gavin McKenna, and not only for Gavin McKenna, for what is supposed to be a very good draft class, right? So I do think, I think the Sharks this could be similar to 2023-ish, right? Where a lot of teams were really bad for Bedard and the point totals were really low. That season, I think we could have a very similar effect, especially if teams realize they're out of it sooner rather than later. So my second bold prediction of this year: I think Alex Nedeljkovic gets re-signed. I think Nedeljkovic and Askarov, I think, will be a great pairing together. I think they're going to play well. And I think the Sharks would like to have some stability in the position. And maybe a team comes knocking for a ridiculous offer for Nedeljkovic, and you can't turn it down. But also looking at what's out there for next year's kind of potential goalies, I think it would be smart if Mike Grier just is like, let's not ride that carousel again, right? So my second bold prediction is Nedeljkovic plays well and gets himself a contract extension with the San Jose Sharks. And, if it's 2 years at 3 or 2 years at $3.5 million, kind of similar to what he's making, maybe a little bit of a pay bump from what he's making now. I think that's a fair contract for Nedeljkovic, and especially as Askarov hopefully continues to improve and get better and takes kind of takes the mantle as the full-time starter. You still need a guy who can play 35 to 40 games, especially as we see next year where it goes from 82 to 84 games. And I would rather just have a really sturdy, strong backup guy in Nedeljkovic, who, again, if you need him to kind of take the wheel for a couple games, he can take the wheel and he's going to know his role. And I think Nedeljkovic is going to have a really strong season with the Sharks. So that's my second bold prediction. Nedeljkovic gets re-signed. My third bold prediction for this season is I think Mike Grier has something big up his sleeves, right? While I don't think Mike Grier is gonna be trading for who like some major free agent to be or something like that. Connor McDavid, I know he just signed his extension, but like whatever big free agent, like he's not trading for like Quinn Hughes or something like that. But I do think Grier tries to solve some of his long-term defensive issues this year, just like he did by acquiring Askarov. I think Mike Grier goes out and gets a big time, long term right-handed defenseman. And whether that's a guy like Dougie Hamilton, who's had his injury troubles, but is when healthy, is a big time offensive right-handed defenseman who can play, and still has a couple years left on his contract. Whether it's a prospect guy, or a kind of that NHL, AHL tweener type of player, whatever it is, I think Mike Grier tries to solve this problem during the season for the Sharks and tries to acquire a long-term piece, specifically on the blue line. That's one of my bold predictions for the season. Is I think that's what Grier doesn't want to continue to patchwork this defense together, and especially with Sam Dickinson, who's going to go through his struggles this year, and you have Ken Yoni coming and stuff, but like he doesn't want to go into next offseason having to try to sign 2 or 3 defensemen to put together a defense, right? I think he wants to try to, my guess is he wants to try to solve that issue sooner rather than later. And then if you can also draft one in the top 10 next year, because there's like 4 guys projected to go in the top 10 for right-handed defensemen, you can really set yourself up defensively here for a while. So that's my kind of next big prediction, is that the Sharks end up solving their right-handed defensive issues here for the next while. So but yeah, I do think the Sharks are going to be markedly better this year. I do think they're going to have some struggles this year as well, because you have so many young players. But while the vibes right now not super great, as you're waiting for these young players to kind of make their impact and make their mark, I do I honestly believe, I believe in Celebrini so much that he's going to just start dragging this team into competence here sooner rather than later. So I think we're going to set to have like a really fun season. Like I think this is going to be the most fun season I've covered since I've been here. And remember, if you're not a long-time listener, I started at Locked On Sharks February 2020. So we went through a whole COVID pandemic. We've gone through the COVID crunch, cap crunch. We've gone through the tanking seasons. I think the tanking seasons are done. I think we're going to start to see a team start to compete. But I still think Mike Grier is trying to acquire assets, and I think he does acquire a big one during this season. So we'll see which one I get wrong. Probably all of them. I feel good about the Nedeljkovic one. So anyway, make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts, and of course you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Until tomorrow. Bye, friends.